Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Last First Date Radio, featuring interviews with experts in dating, relating, and mating in midlife. And now, here's your host, Sandy Weiner.
Hello and welcome, everybody. We are honored to have you here and to be one of the top-rated shows about attracting and sustaining healthy relationships, especially in midlife. And today, I am honored to be speaking with relationship expert and author of The Good Divorce, Sonika Tinker, about how singles can really find true love and stop the whole dating madness. I often see this, the topic of today, it's called For Singles Who Are Sick of Dating and Getting Nowhere. And often I find, as a dating coach for women over 40, that women give up on online dating. They feel like dating doesn't work. They feel like, they're just attracting losers, liars, cheaters. And what they don't do enough of is take responsibility for what they're putting out there. So that's one of the things I work on as a dating coach, and it's something that I am sure we're going to be speaking about in today's episode. My whole motto is that you start with being a woman of value, and the woman of value attracts a quality man. And in fact, I am getting ready to launch my second annual Woman of Value retreat. It's coming up in October. I'm going to be posting about it soon, just putting the final touches on the whole thing. So keep an eye open for the end of October for a 2.5-day retreat in Stamford, Connecticut. It's about 45 minutes from New York City. It was life-changing last year, and I can't wait to do it again and take women through this incredible experience. So keep your eyes open for that. And every week I bring you a tip on how to be a woman of value, and this week's tip is step number 9. That's in my 30 steps. And this step is about being proactive and not reactive. So this relates to your whole life, not just dating, but the more you can be proactive and plan in advance, have conversations before something gets out of control, before you react and get triggered, the more you can see how you can plan your life in that way, the stress just rolls off you. It's amazing. So this is one of the things that I work on with women is communication skills and dealing with triggers and how to really stand up in your true power. So before I introduce our guest, Sonika Tinker, I just want to remind everybody to please join my private Facebook group if you're not already a member. It is called Your Last First Date, and it is a place for single women over 40 who want to get positive support, not negative man-bashing, but positive support, where the conversation is really supportive and juicy and positive and will help you along your journey to your last first date. And now for our special guest, Sonika Tinker. She is an MSW. She is a relationship expert, a mediator, an Enneagram Teacher, an NLP Professional. She's got a lot of certifications. She is the co-author of The Good Divorce and the founder of LoveWorks, which is a relationship training company. She has over 35 years of experience teaching thousands of singles and couples an innovative and uplifting approach to life and relationship that works. We love that. She produces and leads live transformational trainings and online courses with her husband, Christian Pedersen, and has a private practice in Northern California. Join me now for episode number 270 for singles who are sick of dating and getting nowhere. Welcome to the show, Sonika.
Thank you so much. Episode 270. You've been busy.
I have. I have, and boy, has it been life-changing for me to be able to interview wonderful thought leaders like you who are making a difference in the world. So thank you for joining me here today.
Well, thank you for having me and for being one yourself.
Oh, you're welcome. So let's talk about this whole cycle that singles are on and how many people might be actually killing love before it even gets started.
Well, it's I'll tell you, I have worked with so many singles, and one of the biggest thing that I see singles do to kill off love is it really comes from this expectation that's really built up for singles to find their soulmate. And that this idea that somehow they're going to experience an instantaneously blissful in love state, that moment where their eyes meet and they just know it's the one. And it's this hope that a lot of singles have when they go out on dates with a potential partner that also has their hopes get dashed, pretty quickly when they don't have that experience. And not only are they the ones bringing that expectation, but so is their dating partner. And a lot of people who are single and dating will be able to tell you about that experience they have where they feel written off really quickly. It's like, oh, I don't feel it. I remember a friend of mine who was dating, she had an online date prospective partner who said, just let me see you. I will know within 5 seconds. Whether you're the one or not. Yeah. And so it's very fascinating, this idea that people are going to fall quickly and live happily in love, and that people are going to know really fast. And unfortunately, a lot of studies will point to that 67% of people believe in love at first sight, whereas only 11 to 20% of people actually fall in love at first glance and later marry, which is a pretty small perspective. That's a pretty small number. So most people, fall in love over time. A lot of couples will even say they didn't even like their partner the first time that they met them. So what I say is one of the fastest ways that people kill off love before it even gets started is really with this expectation that somehow they're going to meet somebody, fall in love, they're going to know, and so they don't really allow love a chance. They don't really give these people that they're meeting an opportunity for the relationship to build or grow into anything, with that expectation, that unrealistic, I would say, expectation.
Yeah, expectations are a killer, and it's so true, the spark thing. And yet, just to be a little devil's advocate here, I think what happens is people feel, well, do I give everybody a chance? So there have to be some markers, and I think that's where people get confused. I'm really repulsed. So do I go on 5 dates? Because that's what one dating coach told me. So what are your thoughts on that? Like how do you gather the data that gives you the information about whether you should stay and give that person a chance?
It's a really great question. And the thing I always say is, first of all, there's no rules, so I would never tell anybody you have to date everybody. I know there's another dating coach out there that says you have to go out on, with the same person at least twice before you write them off. And I'll say that this idea that people are going to fall in love fast, and there's a couple of other pieces I could bring out as well here as we go on further in the conversation. But I always say the most important thing is, are you willing to see this person again? Like, really, that's all you have to know, is does it feel good enough? It doesn't have to be all the way over to 100%, but does it feel good enough for you to want to see this person again? If you're repulsed, certainly, pay attention to that. But if it's just mildly, like judgmental or you feel mildly put off, you might want to give that person another opportunity, because nobody shows all of themselves in one date. There's no way I can show all of myself in, in one encounter with anyone either.
Right.
So that piece. I mean, it leads to another thing that I see that a lot of people do in relationships. So is, you're looking for a partner, you're looking for a husband, you're looking for a wife, and I always say, don't look for a husband, don't look for a wife. Look for somebody you want to see again next. You want to see again, one more time. Because you're not going to be meeting your husband or your wife. They aren't that yet. They have to, whoever is going to be that person has to develop into it together with you over time.
Yeah.
So you're not going to find them.
Yeah, and we just had a post recently in my group where somebody said, I went on 12 dates in 2 months, and I want to quit dating. It's just so disappointing. And what was interesting was the responses were everything from you had a date, at least you had a date. I have no dates, to, these men were all asking her out a second time, so she obviously is attracting men who are interested in her, and she's writing them all off on a first date. And she's also giving up on dating after 2 months. So these are all based on expectations, on quick judgments, on, having the wrong approach or an ineffective approach to dating.
Well, it brings me to another point here, which is that, when people go out on dates, I love this little piece that you kind of started off with, instead of being reactive, being proactive. Because I think a lot of people go out on dates very much in kind of a reactive stance, like I'm going to show up and I'm just going to see who shows up. I'm going to see what happens. And so I kind of show up like a passive observer, and which throws me, so I'm just going to use I statements as a way of describing this, right? So if I go out on a date in that way, I'm basically in reaction. I'm setting myself up to be in reaction to what shows up. And instead of going out, I would say, you say proactive, which I love that word. I would say proactively creating. What do I want to create on this dating experience so that I leave feeling absolutely thrilled about having had that experience, no matter who that person is, no matter whether I want to see them again or not? How do I go in creating a positive experience? What can I go in with an intention to create? So I want to have intimacy. So what intimate questions could I ask? I want to be in my power. I'm going to take on a little challenge here for myself to go in and make 2 requests. I want to be transparent and honest. So I'm going to take on a little goal for myself to be transparent about what I'm feeling in the moment. I want to focus in on being more appreciative rather than judgmental. So I'm going to find 3 things to appreciate about that person. I'm going to make sure I speak those. So that, you could, those are just all different examples, but really to go in with this intention to create a positive experience where I'm empowered, I'm expanded, this other person feels empowered and expanded and appreciated. We create the best time possible, even if I never want to see that person again. So that I walk away with, wow, that was a success.
Yep. That's such a key thing that you just said. Well, all of it. But the last part of, even if you never want to see that person again, there is no lost opportunity. And I think that when you approach dating in this way, where you're actually taking responsibility for the role that you create and for what you're going to give in order to have a different outcome, dating changes. I created a program with my friend Bobby Palmer. Do you know Bobby?
I don't know. No.
She's a dating coach for women over 40 also, and we created a program called Ace to Date, and it was all about how to succeed at dating, and especially the first date. And it's about preparing, like you would prepare for a job interview. You prepare your stories that you're going to share. You prepare how you want to bring the best of yourself. You prepare the answers to very difficult questions or questions that are really annoying, like, why are you still single? And how's online dating going for you? And how come you never got married? Instead of being a deer in the headlights, prepare an answer that works for you so you are empowered, so that you give only that little bit of information that's what I call the PR version of your life, because that's all anybody wants to hear anyway or needs to hear at this point. But it's about making that positive experience where you're memorable and he becomes more memorable and you make more of a man-to-woman connection, because what we often do is we connect like colleagues. So can you expand on that part a little bit? Like, how would you advise people to make more of a romantic man-to-woman connection than a let me share my job with you kind of connection.
Yeah, right. Well, I love this idea about preparing, and I would say, it's as much thinking, like kind of playing backwards. Okay, what's the experience I want to have on this date? So I want to feel intimate. I want to feel relaxed. I want to feel free to be myself. I want to bring curiosity rather than judgment. I want to, I like some of the other examples I gave, right? I want to make sure I'm in my power. I want to make sure I don't have sex on the first date. That when people can kind of think ahead of time about what it is they want to create, the experience that they're after, and then they go in with the intention to create that experience by being it, not expecting the other person to provide it. And what is so great about that is it's basically the same skill they're going to need when they're in a relationship. Because, after we're in a relationship, we still need to create a great relationship day after day after day after day with the same person. It's not like, long-term relationships don't work either when I just sit back and wait for you to do it all for me, and provide it all.
Right.
I'm just going to react. And so it's the same skill that's required for, a long-term dating relationship or a long-term marriage is really how do I bring to the party what it is I'm wanting to cultivate. And also, how do I want to be left after a date? I want to be left feeling like I'm a good person, like I'm doing my best. I want to feel appreciated for who I am and for what I bring and for what I've accomplished in my life. So how can I leave the other person in that kind of a good feeling place as well? Like, what could I do to provide that same experience for the person who's showing up? So I've had people that I've coached who go out on dates with, people who are like a mess and in tears and totally depressed and depleted. And, they're not somebody that they would like to see again or develop a relationship with. But, wow, had they left that person feeling, left them feeling better than how they showed up.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter was just sharing, she wrote this beautiful piece about her teacher. She had same Waldorf teacher for 8 years, and one of his life tenets was whenever they went any place, they left it better than when they arrived. And I just think that's kind of a great place for all of us to move in our relationships. Like, how do I leave you better than you were when I arrived? How can I contribute and make a difference for you so that I leave feeling really good about myself, regardless of, where we go from here?
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to look at it. So here's something that's coming up for me when people do that. Often there's sort of this need for a lot of women to kind of teach or guide a man and basically telling him he's wrong. So I just read this post about somebody who was interested in a man and they have parenting differences. Now, they haven't gone out yet, but she's seen him at meetups, and she already sees that he's way too lax in his parenting, and he lets his kids come into his bed whenever, so she's already doesn't have a lot of respect for him. They haven't even dated. She's already writing him off because of his lax parenting. So what she said to him was, it's really good for you to set some rules and to, to make your kids understand that your bed is off limits. And I can just imagine a man thinking, who are you to tell me what to do with my kids? I don't even know you. So she thinks she's leaving him in a better place. So if you can differentiate between the let me fix you and let me leave you in a better place, that would be good.
Yeah, great. Well, so there's a distinction between appreciating what is there and focusing in on what is missing and what is absent. And, in life, and especially when we're in dating, well, actually, I see it all the time with, I coach couples as well. Like, couples do it all the time. Most of us get what I call get stuck in complaint. we are really great in this world at seeing what is possible, and especially us women when we're, we can be, we can notice the minutia and the specifics in a way sometimes other people can't. And so it's really easy for us to look at, people in the world, our children, parents, our spouses, men that we're dating, and see all of the places where they are falling short, and to want to fix it, to change it. And when we come in with wanting to fix it and change it, all the other person hears is, I'm not okay the way I am. That is all they hear. They don't necessarily hear a contribution. So when I talk about leaving somebody left better, I'm not talking about trying to fix or change anyone as much as it is really finding some gem in there to appreciate and being able to express appreciation. There's an interesting thing as well. Love and judgment are, they're opposites. So when I'm in judgment, I'm not in love. Love is granting space to someone to exist just as they are. And so when I am busy judging you, I am filling up all of the space with judgment, and there's now no place for love. There's no place for even understanding or compassion. Like, what is it that has you have the kids in the bed? It could be some really sweet, positive, wonderful thing that once you get to know that person and where they came from, it can make total sense. The same for this woman who says, oh, that's not appropriate, you need to have lines. There's in the space of being curious and asking questions to find out why is that important to that person. And again, those are skills that are required for a long-term relationship, because when we're with somebody for a long time, they are going to be doing stuff different than us. And we have to be able to slow it down and understand each other and have compassion and be able to work out win-wins, not just say, it's my way or the highway.
Yeah, and I don't think that they realize that when they're doing it. They think they're contributing, and they don't see that it's criticism and that it's not accepting them for who they are. I think that's a really big issue. And I know I've done it too. And recently I was dating somebody who, we were on our third date, and he was telling me how important it was for him to have a Jewish partner. And he wasn't particularly observant at all. So I was really curious, like, what does that mean to you? What is important about that to you? And his answers were really, to me, all about universalist ideals and not particularly Jewish ideals. And so I was really asking him, like, what would be wrong with dating somebody who wasn't Jewish, who had the same ideals as you? Because it seems that in practice it's only happening on the high holidays and a Passover Seder, but the rest of the year these are ideas about forgiveness and and living it with compassion and kindness, and that's really not particularly Jewish, it's to me. And I said, look, it's something I struggle with, and it's certainly dating later in life, you've got to really, I think, look at all the ways that you've said, this doesn't work for me, this doesn't work for me, and see what really is the kind of connection you need. And are you keeping yourself single because you're keeping your parameters too small? It's just, I was curious, and I think he felt a little like I was interrogating him, but I like to know the answers. So I don't know how you would have approached a situation like that.
Well, I think it's beautiful, actually, you're asking that question and exploring it more. And, the thing that you're bumping up against, which a lot of single people bump up against, is that, especially for those of us who are older and dating, is we have well-formed preferences and, of what it is we want. And it's also really exacerbated in our, commercial culture, where we are really clear about what the specs are that we want when we go to buy a product, and we're kind of take that same Amazon style sort of dating into our Amazon style product purchasing. We bring that same mindset in with us to our dating. And when I always say with my husband, when we first met, he was 15 years younger than me. So I was 47, he was 32. He lived
Wow.
in Denmark. I lived in California. I had 2 children. I had a well-established career and a home, rental properties. He didn't even have a job, had no savings whatsoever. And so, when you looked just at form, it was like, we were quite an unlikely match. And I know a lot of single women will say, well, I only want to be with a man who has a steady job. I want to be with a man who has a house or is financially stable. I want to be with a man who, is older and healthier and they have all of these specifics. And Christian, so one of the things that I always say is that often our pictures of what it is we want, the only reason we want it is because we imagine we're going to have a certain experience when we have all of those things met. But the truth is, and what you're kind of pointing to in this Jewish conversation, is that this man could have the experience he's after with somebody who isn't Jewish. And when we get wedded to that idea, and now all of a sudden you're written off because you're not Jewish when you might have made a really great, perfect, incredible partner for him. And same for Christian and I. I mean, we've been married 12 years. It's been actually married 10, together for almost 13. And we are the most amazing match. And it was actually because he didn't have a job and he had no finances and he had no children and had never had a longer-term relationship beyond 3 years, I think. All of it made it possible, actually, for him to move to California, for us to set up a business together, for him to become father to my children. Wow. That was available because he didn't have a job and because he didn't have, he didn't match all of those pictures.
Yeah, it's a great
story. Sometimes I think Spirit has a better idea sometimes of who would be a good match for us than we do.
Yeah, well, that's, that whole thing about being attached to the list of all those requirements. Actually, the guy who I was dating also said, I don't date real estate brokers or lawyers. And I said, why? And he said, well, real estate brokers tend to be pushy. And lawyers, he had a bad experience with his divorce lawyer or something. I was just like, wow, you're just like writing off whole groups of people based on some experiences you had in the past. How's that working for you? And this is one of the first things I deal with clients when they come to me is look at that list. For some, it's he has to own a home. That's a really important thing. He has to own a home because it represents, like you said, something that you think you're going to get because of it. And I married for all those reasons. I married somebody who I thought ticked off all the little check marks of providing a safe home for me, and we had similar ideals that we were going to raise our children by. And everything changed within about a year. We had a sick child that was born, and my husband's approach to crisis was completely different from mine, and we just separated into 2 separate paths. And the way we raised our children was so different. Everything was different than I thought. So, I know that when you check your list and you think that that's what you need, it's often not.
And also you can kind of hear even in what you're saying, like there's this inside of our list is a desire to avoid unpleasant experience. And even in the desire to avoid unpleasant experience is there's victim is kind of too strong a word maybe, but there's this powerless mentality, like something's going to happen I can't handle or I don't want. So I have to go in making sure none of that is going to happen. Right. And the truth is none of us can ever make sure nothing bad is ever going to happen, as evidenced by all these fires and floods that are going on right now, right? Like life is unpredictable. Life is uncertain, right? You have, a sick child. There's all kinds of things that could happen. I remember I was coaching this one woman who met this guy. The two of them were madly in love with each other. She just loved this guy so much, and she had broken it off with him after 3 months. And what she said, because one, he hadn't invited her to his family for Christmas. Two, he was a little overweight and unhealthy, and she didn't want to be pushing him around in a wheelchair, when they were older. And so she had split up with him. And so in the course of the conversation, I was like, well, one, it can take time for people to line up with, merging lives and, in relationship. Like sometimes it takes people more than 3 months to be willing to totally merge with a family. And I mean, it took Chris and I 2 years for us to, out of doing a long distance relationship before he was ready to come move here. That just couldn't happen any faster than it happened. And then I said, and truthfully, if you're in love and your partner is in a wheelchair, you're going to have so much fun pushing that guy around in a wheelchair. Like, like it's possible. Like really inside of it, the message is it's possible for us to create happy, joyous, lovely, wonderful connections and relationships inside multiple scenarios. So she actually ended up getting back together with him because she was like, she realized that she sort of made a little mistake there in, putting form over her experience.
And
I've heard
that's a great example.
I've heard that a lot of times where people say, oh, my God, he's every... In fact, Christian used to say to people, how will I know when it's the one? He said, I used to tell people, I'll know when it's the one when it feels like it does with Sonika, but it's the one. Because I didn't match his picture either, right? 47-year-old woman from California with 2 children, like, he was looking for the one, and I wasn't it. Except that,
I tell clients all the time that love comes in a surprise package. Like they have this whole idea, but they're not open to the surprise. They're not open to what may be because they're trying to control all the circumstances. So that's a really important tip to remember. Your love story is a perfect example of that. If you could share, I know we're really at time, but I would love for you to share one thing singles can do today, one small step to begin to shift their mindset into a more effective, open, positive dating mindset.
Well, one thing, and it's kind of coming out actually in this conversation, is one, trust that you are a powerful woman, man, and that you can absolutely make good on anything that shows up. Like, you don't have to be so protective at the get-go, right? Like, trust that you're going to be able to deal with whatever shows up. And when you take in that kind of powerful trust about yourself, then to be able to add that to this piece about being creative. Like, go in to every interaction and create a positive experience. One of the things I always say is don't try to find the one, just go practice being in a relationship. Every place you go, practice being in a relationship. Practice initiating conversation. Practice asking for what you want. Practice being intimate and vulnerable. Practice saying what you want. Practice negotiating win-wins. Just practice, practice, practice. And as you set it up to just be a practice session, like it's not the one, and then there's less at stake. There's more freedom. And in that place of more freedom to express and experience and practice, you're going to be more yourself. And when you do attract a mate, you're going to do it from a really great place because now you're being in your power, you're being in your joy, and you're being in the moment. And you just keep going for the openings, going for the ones that show up, keep practicing, and trust you're going to be able to deal with anything and everything that shows up.
Great advice. Well, I love this whole focus of this conversation. It's been really wonderful having you here, and just if people can really take this in, this is so key to dating success and to finding love and to keeping love, because it's a process, and practice. So, Sonika, do you want to let people know how to find you?
Yeah, so you can find me at loveworksforyou.com. And actually, I've got a special gift for people who are listening. It's it's a series of emails actually called Single No More, where we address some of the stuff on this call as well as a bunch of stuff we didn't get to. So loveworksforyou.com/single-no-more. loveworksforyou.com/single-no-more. And, we can send that off to them. And I also do workshops that are very interactive, and I will just say, one of our workshops, Give Yourself to Love, is really great for singles to be able to practice being in a relationship. I mean, really, they just practice over and over and over again, and we've had a lot of singles who have been pretty shut down and reserved, because they get to practice being with others over and over and over and over and over again. They get them put themselves in a relationship mindset. So, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate getting to have this conversation and share with you and with other people who might be listening. And, there's an abundance of positive love experiences out there, and we can totally create them.
Yes, amen to that. Thank you, Sonika. And thank you to everyone who's listening in today, and I hope you all go on your last first date very soon. Have a great day.